Okay, welcome everyone to DEI Friday. Today is October 7th. We have two fantastic guests. Okay, no pressure, Teresa and Kristy, but we have two phenomenal women here today from Baruch who are going to talk about using an equity lens in their work and kind of how they've gotten to the point where they're at right now and how they see DEI issues broadly integrating into their work. What else can I say except that you're in for a great session today. I may have forgotten to mention my name after the recording, so here we are. I'm Anna D'Souza. I'm an associate professor at the Marxe School. I am representing here the DEI committee. We are the ones who, at the Marxe DEI committee, are the ones who put DEI Fridays on at the moment. We are very happy to have folks from Weissman, Zicklin, and across the Baruch community here with us today. So I am going to we're going to start off with a grounding, and I'm going to invite my friend and colleague, Teresa, who I will introduce later in more detail right now to start our grounding.
Thank you, Anna. I'm going to put the timer on because, time and all. So welcome, everybody. We're going to do a 2-minute grounding right now, and welcome to the space. Let's get fully present into our bodies. So for these 2 minutes, feel free to turn your camera off or do some breathing and some visualization. So feel free, whatever feels comfortable. So let's get present and fully in our bodies. Let's start with a deep breath at your own pace. Inhale. Exhale. Great. So let's feel your body in your chair, on your couch, where you're sitting. Just get into that space and feel your feet on the ground or laying on the couch, whatever you're doing. And forget where you're coming from, the emails, the to-do list, things you're going to. Forget about where you're going after this. Let's be fully present. We're here now, we're together. One more deep breath. Exhale through your mouth, it feels good. Let it out. So let's think about the weather. We're in day 2 of the sunniness after what feels like an eternity of gray and rain. And let's think about our inner weather. Is there a connection? The grayness, the 5 days, we haven't had it so long in a row like that. There was no sun. Welcome to those in the space. We're grounding right now. So this is, again, day 2 of sunniness. So thinking about how the sun makes you feel, how those 5 days of rain made you feel. Is there a connection between inside and out? And think about it. We need the rain and we need the sun. Simultaneity, both truths, multiple truths. You're going to hear us talk about multiple truths in that concept. So as we close our grounding, just connecting to the earth and to the weather and seeing the connection between the sun, the rain, and how we feel inside. So a few more deep breaths at your own pace. And let's get that sunniness going. Anna, I hand it back to you. Welcome back, everybody in the space.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm gonna keep my eyes closed for one more moment. And I will invite you all to set your intention for today, for this next about 55 minutes we have with each other. I loved what you brought up, Teresa, about the internal weather and, just recognizing what's coming up for us now, showing up to the space, showing up for a DEI Friday, showing up for one that's called integrating an equity lens into your work. And I invite you all to set your intention as you slowly open your eyes, if they're not open already, and welcome back to the space. So we are going to start off with a session. I have just dropped some links in the chat for those of you who are new, who haven't been here, or are just kind of trying to check it out. Please click on some of the links, you will see past recordings, past sessions, as well as being able to register for coming sessions. We will have them every other week. The next one is around neurodiversity, and we see, and that's on the 21st. And I saw Christina Balboa, there she is, Christina Balboa, the chair of the DEI committee at the Marxe School. She is helping to organize, and now she's moved, but anyway, I'm going to focus on you all here. She's helping organize that session. We have a speaker coming in, and it will be very good. So we hope to see you back here in 2 weeks. Right now, it is my very, very, very pleasure today to introduce two colleagues and friends. I'm lucky to call them friends as well. First, I would like to introduce Dr. Kristy Perez. Dr. Kristy Clementina Perez is the director of the Baruch College's Percy E. Sutton SEEK program. I know that many of you are familiar with the SEEK program, but if you're not, it is a higher education opportunity program. She's also the founding director of the Urban Male Leadership Academy Scholars Program, UMLA, which aims to develop and promote the academic excellence, social consciousness, and leadership skills of Black and Latino male college SEEK students here at Baruch. She possesses over 20 years of professional experience in the field of urban education. Prior to joining Baruch, Kristy served as a high school English teacher and earned her BA in English from the Douglas College at Rutgers University with an MSW with a concentration in community organization, planning, and development from Hunter College of Social Work, and her EDD from Rutgers Graduate School of Education with a special concentration in education, culture, and society. Whew. All right, Kristy. A few claps for her. Please, if you are not clapping in the chat, you can even unmute yourself. Come on, people. I know we're not in person, but please feel free. For a little bit. Thank you. All right, wonderful. And I would like to introduce a dear friend and colleague. Teresa Michael Liu is the Associate Director of International Missions and Recruitment here at Baruch College. She's an experienced professional, again, with over 20 years of experience. She does international missions and recruitment with a demonstrated passion for cross-cultural exchange. She is founding director of the International Admissions Department here at Baruch. She really focuses on a strong balance of expertise gained, or she's kind of amplifying her expertise gained in the Peace Corps when she served in East Timor. She also has a master's in nonprofit management and international affairs from CUNY school. Teresa and I have much in common, including that we were in the Peace Corps. I was in Senegal, she was in East Timor, and surprisingly, the Peace Corps, you know, regardless of where you go in the world, you can find similarities and commonalities, and that's the same thing in the space, right? We all maybe look different, coming from different places, in different positions here at Baruch with different identities, but we're gonna see what we can find in common today and how we can, you know, appreciate the differences we see and how we can amplify all of our voices. So, Kristy, I'd like to begin with you. And for those of you who are a little wondering kind of what the lay of the land is from now till 2 o'clock, or just kidding, it's only an hour. Now till 1 p.m. Forgot we're starting early. So from now till 1, we are going to have a bit of an interview style exchange with Kristy and Teresa first. Then, of course, breakout sessions, because we love active learning and we want you all to connect with each other and think about how you might be already integrating an equity lens in your work, or how you'd like to amplify that. And then we're going to come back for a little more Q&A. And please also think about your questions. We can have them in the chat as well. Okay. So Kristy, I want to start off with you. So tell me, you know, first, how long you've been here at Baruch. I know not all your 20 years has been here. So tell us a little bit about how long you've been at Baruch and a bit about your journey in terms of, you know, what I see in you, and the reason I invited you to be here is because it's not just because you're here representing SEEK, which is one of our programs that of course amplifies, you know, equity, and but it's also that I have seen you in many spaces really have this kind of grounding and centering about, I think, what your values are, and those are the values that I really that inspire me a lot here. And so just tell us more a little bit, you know, about your journey.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you for having me join this conversation. It's great to see everyone here. So I've been in Baruch since 2009. I was a graduate student intern at the time at the Hunter School of Social Work, and then moved along as a SEEK counselor, director of UMLA, deputy director, and then SEEK director. But my journey here, I don't want to go too far back, but it really started in childhood, in the sense that I went to a predominantly Black and Latino school. I grew up in a predominantly Black and Latino community, and early on I loved school, or the idea of school, but early on I felt like I didn't belong there. Didn't have the language that something was wrong, but felt it by the way teachers spoke to us, how just the whole environment, this kind of school that I went to. What I was privileged though was that I have a father, right? I come from working class backgrounds, has a high school degree, but was well read. And anytime I was watching the news or watching a TV program or something, he was like, where are all the Black folks? Where are the Latinos? What's missing in the conversation? Or if I brought in, a story about, talking about something that happened in school, he would counteract and say, we come from Dominican Republic. There's a lot of beauty in there. There's a lot of richness in who you are. So I was privileged enough to have a home that in a family that fed into me, but I was also very much aware that the system wasn't necessarily, and at that time, because my work is more in the educational realm, looking at how the educational realm wasn't fit for me. And then, as I moved along, middle school, high school, being told even as an honor student, you're not going to go to college, you should go to community college. And having that like anger, rage is what really fueled me really early on, of like, no, it doesn't seem right. I just could never understand. If I wanted to get an education, why couldn't I have access to education? At the time, I come from Perth, New Jersey, and New Brunswick is like 15, 20 minutes. So going to Rutgers University was like, oh my gosh, it's a big deal. And it was going away from home, but I couldn't understand, like, I'm from Amboy, I can't go to Rutgers? Like, what is that about? But even the idea of like, I wasn't introduced to like going to like an NYU or out of state. I mean, the conversation was so small, and it wasn't until I got to college, that was the first time I had a Latino professor, a Black professor, professionals, that I was like, wow, there's a whole world. And it wasn't until when I was taking a semester, I was gonna leave school as a 3.7 GPA student. I was gonna drop out, and it was Dean Ramonita Santiago that said, no, you will not leave. You are running away from yourself. You belong here. And that was the thought of, I want to do what she did. And FYI, I had a conversation with her 3 days ago. She's still in my life. So for me, it's being her and all the people that poured into me, my family, individuals like her, that makes me be a stand for students. And yes, I came to Baruch because of SEEK. That is why I'm in Baruch. And at the same time, I've always told every space that I wish I could make Baruch SEEK, that the model of that every young person or any person that wants access to education, quality education, should have it. It should be affordable, it should be equitable, and they should know and feel that they belong. And that, so that's been, my guiding force when you talk my values. I'm just bringing in what my father has always brought to me and what other folks have always brought, and just making sure that I'm naming what is missing, so that folks can make sure that we address it.
Thank you for that, Kristy. I really appreciate, you said you don't want to go so far back, but the truth is, like, all this stuff starts when we're children, and the students who we look at every day, the students we see, many of them are coming out of New York City public school systems, and they have been, all of this stuff that has been sprinkled on them, just like you mentioned, feeling a sense of belonging or not, how large their world is or not, by the time they show up to us, the question is, what can we do, right? If their world has not been expanded, how can we expand, right? What can we do to kind of live those values? And it's not just for our students. One of the things we talk about here at DEI Fridays is, we try and get more students to come, by the way. Okay, I'm trying with the marketing, but the reality is a lot of us here are faculty and staff. And we have this lens that we focus on students, but when we're thinking about our values and stuff, I really want to also just, as you said, Kristy, you're here for this program. You're here for your staff. I know you're here for your staff because I know some of your staff and they appreciate what you're modeling, and they appreciate that lens that you're bringing. And so I just want to kind of add that I think you are bringing yourself to your students. And as you do that, you're modeling your values to your staff and to those of us colleagues who don't work directly with you. But it's that's what we see every day, right? We see our colleagues. So thank you for that, Kristy. Teresa, can I bring you in and share a little bit about kind of your journey in this area?
Okay, thank you, Anna. And so I'm Teresa, and I have to say thank you to Kristy, because going all the way back to childhood is not even something I brought into the conscious thought until we were preparing for this talk. So I've been at Baruch for 10 years doing international admissions recruitment. But to start with the childhood piece, contrary to you, Kristy, my father told me something different. So I'm Egyptian American, first generation. And I have a very vivid memory of being about 9 or 10 years old visiting family in Egypt. And I was looking over the balcony, high rise, and I saw a very tall Sudanese, very dark man. And my dad saw me looking, and he's like, oh, no, those are bad people. They come to our country and they do X, Y, and Z. And I remember in that instant, I'm so right there in that moment thinking, okay, that doesn't sound right. And my honest to goodness thought was like, Dad, you're just jealous because he's tall and beautiful and you're short and kind of really, that was my thought. Because we believe our parents, right? As whatever they're saying. So I think that was the moment, and Kristy, thank you for pointing this out in a previous conversation. That could be the moment where it was born, that I was conscious of, oh wait, you're just judging somebody based on, so all of that to say, my parents immigrated, and all I heard growing up was work hard. You have to work hard, you have to study hard. And the idea of a meritocracy, that you work hard, you'll get what you work for. And everybody has the same chance. Like, we're immigrants, we got to work harder, we have, so that's what's running in my background, my programming. So, okay, so at Baruch, I'm so fortunate to be physically located where I'm located, because I don't sit with admissions, though I do admissions. Now I'll call you all out in the crowd, Natalie and Rob, being next to you, while you were working on Success Academy. So this is a program for Black and Brown students who are coming to amplify their experience while they're beginning at Baruch. So literally physical proximity, hearing what they're talking about. Because me, I'm over here, I'm a good person. I don't have racist things in my practice. But folks, I'm in admissions. It's literally, I influence who gets into the college. And I didn't make the connection of gatekeeping. I'm laughing at myself with love and grace at my former, right? Because you have to be graceful in this work, and we have to take the posture of learners and like, I don't know anything. So watching Natalie and Rob and other folks do the Success Academy, and like I would volunteer, and like things I started hearing, growing my curiosity, and Kristy with Seek, and learning that all Seek staff do the Undoing Racism workshop. I'm like, wait, I want to do that. So in Undoing Racism, you might have heard of that 2-day intensive 3-day, I don't remember anymore. So you learn everything we never purposefully learned in our formal education, because it's the true history of the United States, the true history of where race came to be. So now understanding systemic racism and people don't all have the same opportunity. Oh, what a concept. So here I am, at Baruch, again, laughing at myself gracefully, is what I thought it was, like being a good person. Yes, of course. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to unlearn a lot of the things that we have learned. I saw a quote online that I've learned more from my unlearning than any of my formal education. And I think the more we unlearn, and I know a lot of us in this group are in different spaces together, Curve, et cetera, it's almost as if the more we're learning in that sphere in terms of the history of the United States, et cetera, and about race, the more we understand that we don't know, right? So I think that's what leads me to not even see my job title anymore in terms of international admissions, but to be like, okay, how can I be of service to the students, right? How can I show up as a human being to allow the students to be human, whether it's in first year seminar, how I write my emails, and Tom knows, Tom Rainey and I work together. it's so easy to be like, okay, productivity, but it's like, am I seeing the student? Or is it just a person that's trying to get into Baruch? Am I seeing the student as a person? So, so that all of the literally proximity, because I've worked in other places where the proximity to the programs of Seek and Success, and now Success Amplified, it's an all in together type of work. And I know later we might talk about challenges, and it's getting everybody on board, but not pointing to others and always looking, what can I be doing? So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Teresa. Actually, I'm going to do a quick follow-up before we have everyone go into small groups. And, you know, we will well, we were going to, in terms of the schedule, we'd plan to talk about challenges later, but I guess maybe I'd like you to both speak to some specific examples of how you integrate, you know, how you do it. And if some challenges come up there, that's fine as well. Please feel free. You know, this is very fluid. So please answer as openly and as much as you want to right now. But, you know, when we think about integrating this lens, Teresa, you used the concrete example that you're actually in admissions. And so, you know, for you do have, you know, so what are some of the, you know, changes that you've maybe made, small or large, since you did that workshop, since you started learning more about this, since you started, I think the way I sensed it just now was taking ownership, right? Because it's as if, I think I heard the phrase earlier that I thought was really interesting, which is like, oh, that's great for you. You know, that's great for Seek, that's great for other groups. And I think that I hear that a lot at Baruch, right? Anna, you do that DEI stuff. That's awesome out there, you know? And the question is that I'm asking of myself through in my classes, in my service work, in my research, and I'm wondering, I'm sure you and Kristy are asking of yourselves, is like, on a daily basis, right? How do I integrate this? And living our values is the kind of umbrella. And I'd like to kind of look under the umbrella and, like, you know, so can you both give a couple of examples, please? Teresa, I'll invite you to come back on. Yeah, first.
Sure. So many things are coming. So I'm sure a lot of us have heard of implicit bias, like training and all of that. So I am trying to be as hyper aware of my implicit biases as possible. So for example, Tom and I are also working on out-of-state students as well, recruitment. And I'm noticing, who am I giving more attention to? And like, why am I being more kind? For example, what I perceive as kind in a certain email, like why am I giving this student more service or care, etc.? And calling myself to that, be like, oh, I just answered an email where I was very matter of fact. I didn't say, hope you're doing what. Very simple touches. So kind of stopping the process and thinking, wait a second, what's going on for me right now that I'm being a little bit extra kind, whatever it is, okay? And here's another concrete way. I think for all of us, we have a million tasks, or for example, I have 700 out-of-state applicants I need to look at. So I'm not going to get to all of them. Who hasn't received attention that maybe another population has historically received way more attention? Where can I make a big difference here if I have to prioritize my time? So where do we have initiatives? What sorts of students? Are we going to pay attention to the student? You have to decide. So these are ways. When a student comes to the front desk, I'm trying to be aware of, like, okay, what's my programming saying about what I think they need or who they are? Natalie and I have had many instances in the one-stop shop where we think we know based on appearance and presentation of a student. A student came in and said, yeah, my parents cut me off. And so we were, and she was like, you know, amazing presentation, the outfit, gorgeous. I filled in a big narrative about her. Oh, she's so entitled. They cut her off because she keeps wasting their money. You know what it is? I went and looked at her essay. She is from a Middle Eastern family and she's pursuing STEM, and her parents don't think that doesn't fit her gender. Wow, humbling moment. I had thought, like, she's a party girl, like she's out and about. So again, being aware of, like, wow, I helped her know, like, in terms of her application, she had a little bit of a mess to undo with some application stuff. But boy, I sat back and said, wow, I made so many assumptions based on how she presented. So it's that hyper awareness of, oh, wow, I just was about to, right? So it all comes back to the implicit bias and the self. So interacting with students on a daily basis and watching my thought patterns based on what I'm seeing, and knowing that that's danger of a single story, right? Seeing what we see in front of us and how what's behind it could be so far from our first impression.
Thank you, Teresa. Kristy?
So a couple of things. So one, as Teresa mentioned, and this I inherited in modeling, like when I'm in a position of influence or power, what can I do? And so I do make my staff, anyone, or not only staff, but graduate interns, part-time folks, everyone's going to do the Undoing Racism workshop. That's to have a structural lens around the inequities that particularly the student population that I'm privileged to serve. So there's a common language. So being intentional about, we're gonna look at this from a structural way and then have an analysis of how are we gonna work with our students. Then looking at the data, SEEK is known for its great work, but there's still a lot of work to be done. The population that we're still struggling with are Black students and primarily Black males. That's our lowest student group within our population, right? And so bringing that into the conversation and saying, what are we gonna do on the admission side to enroll, recruit, and sustain them. But then even when our students are here, what are the interventions that we're going to be putting into place? Because, understanding that there's a lot of other things coming into play. And so we have to be more intentional and targeted. Additionally, making sure that bringing as much of the humanity into the space. How do I, in this particular role, as you have mentioned, people say, well, that's a SEEK thing, having to be, I remember times in faculty senate when folks would say, oh, well, that SEEK can deal with the lack of Black and brown students in the program. And then having to say, no, it's an institutional problem. So having to name it, having to be the person in the room, building relationships. I think part of it is also having one-on-one. There have been plenty of times that I've also messed up and have said the wrong thing and have had to circle back to someone and saying, I messed up. I had a moment, I didn't get it right. Like, having to also know when there are blinders, as Teresa mentioned, that having to do our own work, that this is like, for me and for many people, life's work. Like when we started off with a grounding, I have to meditate daily. I have to do things to keep me grounded and centered, because this being a human being is hard. And then when you add all the different realities that all folks have to face through, is being intentional. So I think thinking about what role, so for me, it looked very different. As like I said, when my father would watch a program, it would be like he would name what was missing on the TV show, right? When, as when I was a community organizer, what kind of conversations was I having with people? Like whatever role you're in, it's not about title or position. It's like, how am I going to disrupt what I know, even if I don't have the language in my bones, does not feel right. And also understanding that there's privilege, that there's certain folks that are not always in a space to do that for a variety of different reasons, whether it's because we're from a marginalized group or because our position in the institution doesn't allow that. So if you're in a position of power or influence or just of any kind of privilege, that it's also a responsibility to have to name what's going on. I think naming is one of the main things of how do you integrate that lens, is like naming how it's inequitable. In what ways, yeah.
Thank you, Kristy. There's a lot that both of you just shared that I just want to kind of highlight a few things that jumped out at me. I think this idea of who has been centered and who are we going to center? Because as an economist, I would be remiss not to say that resources are scarce, our time is scarce, and we do not want to come from a scarcity mentality, which is what many of us do come from, and feel like, oh my gosh, there's no time for everything, right? And so we don't want to come from that mentality. At the same time, we want to recognize, like as Teresa pointed out before, she's responding to, she has 700, I think, emails or applicants or something, right? And so, of course, you have to prioritize. And in our jobs, we all have to, there are only 24 hours in the day. And I hope not all of those are going to our students, right? And so in that sense, we are all prioritizing all the time, right? We are making these decisions all the time. I will quote from something I learned from the inclusive pedagogy folks. Hello, Michael, and I think Julia's here too, though I can't see her right now. And one thing I learned there is this idea of just being mindful while we're making our decisions, right? So the truth is, when we put together a syllabus, when you schedule a meeting, when you have a 1 hour meeting and you decide not to start with grounding, most of our meetings don't, right? Well, you decide what tone are we setting, right? When I'm doing my syllabus, am I thinking about voices that have been centered and voices that have not been centered? Am I thinking about every decision on the syllabus as an entry point, a way to live some of those values that I have, right? And so one thing is about centering and prioritizing. The other thing that, Kristy, I want to amplify that you've said several times is like, what is missing? What is missing? Who is missing, right? Who is missing? And again, are these missing gaps going to be filled in by the DEI programming or SEEK or Success Amplified? Or are we thinking about it as a college? And I invite you all to think about this. Do we want some of these values around equity to be integrated throughout the college? Okay, so I'm gonna stop there and let you all get to know each other a little bit. So I'm making these breakout groups relatively small, 3 to 4 people, okay? This is the question that you are gonna be working on. You'll have about 13 minutes or so. And we will come back for the questions that you put in chat. We'll get back to that at the right after the breakout session, okay? So here is, I think I put it in twice by accident, just 1 second. So don't look at the top one, okay. So the reflection question is gonna be, what thoughts and feelings came up for you when you were hearing our colleagues' experiences? How does equity work already show up in your work and the work of your team and your colleagues? Or maybe are there those gaps, right? Is something missing there? And are there ways to kind of start brainstorming around that? So you will have about, let's say 12, 13 minutes. Please be conscious of the time. I'll let you know when we're about halfway there so that everyone gets to share their voices, yeah? If you have not introduced yourself to each other, please do. Today, again, I was very excited at the beginning because my friends were here. And so I forgot to tell you, please introduce yourselves in the chat, but we will do that when we get back. Now, on the off chance that you have to leave early, that is totally okay. We thank you for being here. So if you head out after the breakouts, that's cool. Otherwise, we'll see you back here in about 12, 13 minutes. All right. And so, Teresa and Kristy, can you please tell us a little bit about the challenges that you faced in doing this sort of work?
So you having just made a mistake about not hitting record, I mean, it's part and parcel of, and Kristy, you named it earlier, that the mistakes, and we mess up and we start over. Taking that humble approach, absolutely. I used to feel in the beginning to imposter in terms of I don't know as much as the other people, and I wouldn't ask questions, and I would feel like all of the things I don't know were showing, but yet that's how the design of society and education. How could I blame myself? And so it's upon me to learn the unlearning. So you said, Anna, words of wisdom, and Leslie, you mentioned it in chat. It's about learning about our colleagues and forming relationships that are beyond the coworker sort of status quo. So I would say the word of advice is building the community. To combat, it could feel lonely in this work of being the one, like Kristy said, the only one at the table that might be thinking about equity lens. So forming the community, whether it's home, at work, in your community, where my kids go to school, forming the community there of parents who care about what are we saying about Indigenous Peoples Day on Monday versus calling it other names. So it is continuous. So building the community, because you have people around you where you think, am I crazy? Because that just happened. Can we sound off together? And there are some people in the Zoom room. We have really built something in our incubator, the Baruch incubator. Y'all know who you are, that it has become a home for us at Baruch. And I know we move through spaces way more confidently because we have that sense of community. So building that community, and also we have to swim upstream to do the unlearning, because those things you have to find on your own. Dr. Karanja Carroll, who's a professor in BLS here, he said something I always quote. He said, the structure benefits from the separateness. So when we only see each other as colleagues and we don't interact, like the structure, the systems stay in place. But when we break down those walls, when we start with groundings and we actually get in touch with our humanity, we cannot not see each other as human beings. And we treat each other better. And that trickles to the students. It's everywhere. So that's what my the challenge and the remedy.
Thank you, Teresa. I appreciate that. Kristy, where are you on my screen? Oh, there you are.
I'm here. So, well, first, echoing everything that Teresa just shared. And for most, I've partnered with, worked with, cried with, fought with, most folks, advocated with most folks in the Zoom room. And so the challenges I do face, and I'll name a few in a moment, it's really because many of the folks here have made it possible to face those challenges, because it really takes a collective effort in a community, and to also just check in with someone. Am I crazy? Am I crazy? Or like, did this is, because please, just let me know if I'm the crazy one in this scenario. If I'm crazy, okay. Or just, like getting that reality test, or just getting that just person that I could just cry to and just say, I am frustrated. I have cried at work. I had moments of just distraught and anger and rage. And I think the challenges that I think are most, like, I expect, and it took a long time, like the institution wasn't designed for us, for people that are in, these people in the room, it just wasn't designed. So I expected the institutions to behave the way it does. I think what becomes painful and a challenge is when there's like a basic element that's core to like the work that we're supposed to be doing, and I'm fighting for that. Like, I'm fighting, like, why are you not responding to my email? Why am I asking for this basic entity of a student that Austin is supposed to have? Like, I'm not even asking for, like, let's move mountains in this scenario. Like, it's just, I think that becomes the hardest challenge to accept, because I'm not asking for anything that what is just like what I'm just entitled to, or what the students are entitled to. Like, that's what I think is most frustrating, is just asking for the basic and still having to ask for basic pieces, right? Because that to me is what really gets underneath my skin. And so how do I deal with that, is again going to community and having to again go back and be very intentional about not letting this get to my spirit, because that's when it's not good for me or for anyone around me, if it gets inside of my spirit, and then I start to lose hope. Because the reality is that whether I'm doing this particular work in Seek or Baruch or whatever, I'm gonna be living this work. It's in my life, it's in who I am, it's how I live. So I think it's about what advice or what I would say is what Teresa said: know who your people are, and in the sense of who you can reach out to and trust and have community with. Be around people that are also going to hold you accountable, that are going to say you didn't get it right. Being able to be okay with sometimes you need to tap out for a moment, right? Like, in the sense of, I'm not going to be able to lead this conversation or lead this effort right now in this moment, because my own healing and well-being, I need to like rest, and I need some folks to jump in here. And I think for me, most recently, remembering that even when I'm in conflict, that I'm in conflict with a human being. And I think that's the piece that, and if I get emotional, that's the piece that I have to remember. I'm working with human beings, so that way I don't lose my humanity.
I don't even know if to snap, to cry, to cough, to whatever. I got a little bit of a cold going on. For those of you who have to leave right now, I'm sorry you're leaving at this. This is a peak moment, because this is what this is all about. Now, I'm also going to cry, and that's a normal human thing, right? So let's bring it. Because I think at the core of what you're saying, Kristy, is that the system that we are in here at Baruch College, and every single place, I'm like looking out the window from my bedroom, every place out here is dehumanizing in so many ways to so many people on a daily basis, right? And so we show up at work and we are looking to our colleagues and our and those around us to help us live in our humanity. And Teresa mentioned that earlier, that we all here, and I'm speaking like this because I don't think there are very many students here. So if there's a student here, thank you for being here. But for a moment, I'm gonna, because I mostly see my colleagues here as staff and faculty and administrators. And I think what Kristy, what you're saying is so close to my heart, because one of the things that I've come out of the pandemic trying to do is bring more of my full self to work. I also happened to get tenure around that time. So what? Now I can bring more. Okay. I'm just saying that because people are like, you're so different. I'm like, right. You're wondering why I didn't speak out earlier? I'm not sure. Could it be this loop that you want us to jump? Okay, hoop, sorry. Anyway, but I bring that up, Kristy, because what you're saying is really near and dear to my heart, that even when we get so frustrated at others, and I hear the frustration of some of you all in this room about, not getting the email, but all these things, it is like this constant tension and dance between giving grace and having accountability, to each other. And so I will close out by saying thank you, Kristy, and thank you, Teresa, for bringing your humanity here today and for showing it on full display. You have brought your minds and your hearts and your full bodies here, and we appreciate it. To each of you in this room today, who I can see, and I'm going to scroll because look, we got so many people. Okay, oh no, now you're all on one screen. People have to leave at one. Sorry, it's 1:03. Thank you for staying a couple of minutes extra. I'm just trying to take some deep breaths and take in everything that we have been given today. It was a gift, Teresa and Kristy, to do this with you. Colleagues, I want to say, those of you who've shown up today, that you were the reason we're here, okay? Kristy and Teresa and I, we actually have different spaces that we can go and hang out, right? I mean, this is the point. It's trying to build this space, which is very different. We don't have this space, okay, at Baruch at the moment. We don't have people who come together on every other week or whatever to talk about these issues in the space across the college, across different the hierarchies. And so I just want to thank you all for being here today. This has really been a beautiful session. And I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. The topic is around supporting, I think, Christina, the title is Supporting Neurodiversity in the Workplace and the Classroom. Awesome. And we will have a speaker who works in as a consultant for ACS. Thank you, Christina. Would you like to just mention that, since I am all, verklempt, as they say?
Well, I wasn't ready to, but we do have a social worker who's going to come in who works, who specializes in neurodiversity and how it appears in the workplace. So she's going to talk to us about the different ways that it appears in the workplace and how we can be supportive about it. And so she has experience. She is also pursuing higher education and is ABD at this moment. Her name is Christina Anderson, and she will be here next week. So please, or next week, the 20th.
Yep. 21st. Thank you so much. And for those of you who had some issues on the Zoom getting in, I'm sorry. I'm going to try and fix that stuff. Again, grace for all. And the last thing I will say is first, goodbye to those of you who are watching, and thank you so much for watching.